Hello. I wanted to talk about the future of US President Donald Trump because whatever happens, it is hard that US is not involved. They are always involved in most of the geopolitical challenges or activities that are taking place across the world. So, and there is a lot of unprecedented turns that are happening, unexpected decisions that are being kind of taken in the US administration ever since Mr. Trump assumed office, and has never failed to raise the eyebrows, not just in the US but across the world. So there is a lot of speculations, about impeachment or whatever it is, and I can see a lot that are happening on social media. I don't know whether it is true because I don't live in the US, but I thought it would be interesting to take a look at the astrology of the world. I mean, mundane astrology as far as US is concerned. I won't be looking at Dro- President Donald Trump's chart. I see that it is misspelled. Sorry for that. But I will be looking at the Aries Ingress charts for 2025, 2026, and 2027. So before we begin, so I want to set the context of what we will be doing. I won't be looking at the entire Aries Ingress because that's not the context of this session. So I thought uh, I'll just talk about the presidency or the leadership, potential leadership crisis in US. So, so to understand and analyze the condition of the king of the nation, we need to look at the uh, MC and the lord of the MC. So if the MC and the lord of the MC are afflicted by malefic planets like Saturn, Mars, and the nodes, there will be a lot of challenges for the king, and affliction also means that the lord of the MC or the MC should not be in a square uh, opposition or conjunction uh, to the natural malefics like Saturn, Mars, and the nodes of the moon, which are Rahu and Ketu. So, so we will talk about the significator of the king, and try to understand what lies ahead for the leadership of the United States. Before we move on, I just wanted to kind of announce that I am launching a WhatsApp channel. So basically, I will be kind of writing astrology updates only once a day. So I won't be kind of banging your inbox with continuous messages. So you can be assured that you won't feel any disturbance. So just one update per day, and then unless and until there is something major that is going on, or if there is any announcement, I won't be kind of writing to you on WhatsApp. So it will be a very quiet channel with only astrology updates uh, on a daily basis. So if you are interested, I will be very honored to have you there. And let's move this forward. So this is the Aries Ingress chart of 2025 cast to Washington DC, and we see that Aquarius is rising at the moment when Sun enters Aries in the third house of the Aries Ingress chart. So we see that midheaven falls in the final degrees of Scorpio, and obviously term ruler, the term ruler of the MC, that is the term or the bound ruler of the MC, is placed in the second house on the nodal axis. Uh, and Saturn has no dignity. Saturn is peregrine in Pisces, which means this is one drawback. The lord of the bound is not well placed, and it is peregrine in the second house, which could indicate that his decisions or his directions where he's taking the nation could potentially lead to some form of an economic downfall or challenges. Uh, so that is one thing. So basically imbalance in terms of economy, and as the midheaven falls in Scorpio, and MC indicates the MC is one of the significators of the king. So we look at the MC to understand the nature and quality of the king during that particular year. And more importantly, we need to look at the lord of the midheaven, that is Mars, because Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Therefore, Mars is the significator of the king. And we find that Mars is debilitated in the sixth house of Cancer. So, which is another drawback. So, sixth house is one of the evil houses in traditional astrology, both Indian and Greek or Persian. So, and sixth house is also a cadent house, and cadent houses always indicate some form of a decline. So, the significator of the king, that is Mars, is placed in the sixth house, and therefore we can come to a reasonable conclusion that there is going to be a decline in the nature and quality of the king, or the way he's leading or running the nation. So there is going to be some form of a decline. And we have to note that Mars is also debilitated in the sixth house, which indicates further affliction and also major decline. So Marshall, one of the key figures in the medieval astrological tradition, says that if the significator of the king is placed in the sixth house, infirmity will befall him. So what is infirmity and what is uh, going to befall him is something that we need to kind of understand, both from a physical point of view, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, and also from a political perspective. So first, let's get into the physical analysis and see, like, obviously Mars is the significator of Deha, that is the body itself, according to Jyotish. And physically, the king represented by Mars may suffer from illness, because Mars is the natural significator of illness or diseases or physical weakness or conditions that could impede his physical existence or physical progress, or kind of that conditions that impede his ability to function as the leader of the nation. So that is one thing. So the efficiency is surely kind of coming down or declining at various levels as the leader of the nation. And as I mentioned earlier, Mars is the natural significator of diseases. It could be fever or inflammation or any kind of acute diseases. So in this case, Mars is basically fallen in the sixth house, and this chart is valid for the rest of the year, because Aquarius is a fixed sign. So unless we have cardinal or mutable signs rising during the sun's entry into the sign of Aries, we don't need to cast another ingress chart. So for this year, since the fixed sign is rising, this particular chart is valid through the year. So there is going to be some form of downfall or decline concerning his physical stature throughout this year. So maybe he's going to get weak because of health challenges, or Mars is debilitated. So basically, we can understand that his vitality will also be debilitated. So given the symbolism, I think the king may have to undergo health challenges, and that could potentially undermine his capacity to govern the nation to the best of his abilities. So from a political perspective, right, the sixth house within the context of politics obviously signifies individuals in positions of servitude who kind of serve the nation, which includes servants or subordinates or armed forces, military service, etc. While also kind of it encompasses the general idea of service and duty to the nation, or even others in general. So, but we see that Mars, the significator of the king, is basically fallen. So we see that Mars, the lord of the MC, or the significator of the king, is fallen or debilitated in Cancer, which is the sixth house. And we can understand that the king or the ruler of the nation is going to face significant internal conflicts or strife, as people below him might not be happy with him, or the king would not be happy with people who are working for him. And he would probably understand there is some kind of a conspiracy that is going on, which might undermine his authority, like where he would feel that people who are working for him are kind of secretly opposing him, or maybe outrightly betraying him or something like that. So uh, and obviously the placement suggests that there is a lot of internal instability. There is a lot of distrust, and also uh, you know acts of sabotage, or something like that, which is going on, or which may happen within the office of administration. So the king is going to feel unsupported or maybe isolated even, which would kind of contribute to his decline, and he would eventually maybe lose his grip as a leader during this year. And there is also a lot of potential for reputational damage that could put the king in a bad light. So, and Mars is fallen in Cancer, and Moon is not really in configuration with Mars, so that there is no condition of reception, and any chance of mitigation is also kind of thrown out of the window, because the Moon is not receiving Mars. Both are in aversion to each other. Like Mars is placed in the sixth house, and the Moon is placed in the 11th house of Sagittarius, which means there is no reception. So this kind of further confirms that there is going to be some form of a decline of the king, because Mars has no uh, support whatsoever. So yeah, so as I mentioned, this chart is kind of valid for the entire year. And one more interesting addition that I want to make here is that the conjunction of Venus and Mercury in the third house. So Venus rules the ninth house of foreign relations. So Venus is in detriment, and Venus is in detriment in Aries, and it also happens to be the third house. So which means there is a lot of decline as far as the ninth house matters, such as foreign policy and foreign relations, are concerned. And Mercury, which rules the fifth and the eighth house, is in a whole sign square with Mars, that is the king. So the ninth house matters will conflict the king, or king will be conflicting the ninth house matters, or there would be conflicts that arise through the matters related to the ninth house, or maybe the fifth house and the eighth house as well. So there will be a lot of reserves that would be wasted, which means money for unnecessary causes. And there will be a lot of strains as far as foreign diplomacy is concerned, and primarily occurring because of poor communication or rash decisions made by the administration or people in the administrative levels. And Venus, as I mentioned, Venus is cadent, and it also kind of signals a major deterioration in alliances, and a lot of negotiations will end up in failures. And obviously Aquarius is rising, and a lot of the rising sign, that is Saturn, is peregrine in Pisces, which is another major challenge. And not only is Saturn peregrine, but it is also afflicted by the nodal axis, which means that there is going to be a lot of imbalance within the nation, and the way people perceive United States of America will be very different and will start to slightly deteriorate. And there will be a lot of economic and material concerns, because the second house, uh, I mean, nodes are placed in the second house, and we will see a lot of economic instability and confusion, and which also destabilizes the nation overall. And we see that Rahu and Saturn, natural malefics, are in the second house. So economically there will be some form of challenges, and which will be most likely aggravated by poor leadership, or internal discord, or poor maybe economic mismanagement or something like that. See, overall, it's from King's point of view, I'm not trying to talk about anything but only the king. So there are a lot of other things that I won't go into as far as this chart is concerned. So this is only the king. So whether the king has the potential to direct the nation on the right path and make his people happy, I don't think that is the case. So that's one thing. So next we'll look at the before we look at the Aries Ingress of 2026, so I'm as many of you know, like I've been sending newsletters for the past 5 years or so on a reasonably regular basis. Uh, but and uh, and I started sending out newsletters through Substack because of my discontent in using other mailing platforms. So if you are on Substack, you can directly Substack, follow me on Substack and subscribe to my newsletters, or otherwise you can support. Sorry, you can, yeah, obviously support, but you can also subscribe through my website, and you will obviously receive newsletters via Substack. But I suggest, if you can obviously follow me on Substack, but I suggest you subscribe via email so that we don't lose contact in case Substack goes out of existence at some point. But I'm sure I'll be sending out reasonably regular astrological updates, and I'm always focusing on sending weekly updates. So I'll be keeping you informed on various developments as far as the astrological configurations are concerned, and I'll also be adding some of my own personal updates, including sessions or courses, whatever it may be. So feel free to subscribe, and I will be happy to keep you informed. Followed by Aries Ingress of 2026. So here we have Gemini rising. So I'm not going to cast Libra Ingress in this talk, but I'll just be using Aries Ingress, and we'll see what happens. So there is a lot of challenges as well, probably even more challenging than the earlier chart uh, as of 2025. So if you see, Gemini is rising with a lot of the rising sign is fallen in the 10th house of Pisces. 10th house is administration. So 10th house is the natural house of administration. It does not indicate the king, but it indicates the office or the White House administration. So we need to kind of look at the 10th house as well. So that is one thing. But since we are talking about the condition of the king, so we'll see where the MC is. So MC is in the 9th house of Aquarius, and Saturn, the lord of the MC, is debilitated in the 11th house of Aries. So this is a major challenge, as it indicates problems with friends and allies, because 11th house indicates, it signifies friends and allies, and Saturn is placed in the 11th house with Moon, which indicates impulsive nature, or very restless condition of the people of the United States. And Venus is also in its detriment in Aries. So let's talk about Saturn. Saturn is debilitated in a very weak condition. And does Saturn have reception? No, Saturn does not have reception from Aries, from Mars, because uh, Mars and Saturn are in aversion to each other, and Mars is placed in Pisces while Saturn is placed in Aries. So there is no configuration between Saturn and Mars, so there is no reception at all, which means that Saturn is basically, poorly placed. And mashallah, again, he says that the significator of the king in the 11th house, it signifies fitness, esteem, piety, liberality, and also expenses. So he says expenses because the 11th house is the second house from the 10th house. So that is why I think he says, which kind of forces an assumption that 10th house can also be looked at the king, but MC is always the significator of the king. So in this case, we see that obviously Saturn is a bad condition, and we have to deem everything that is opposite to what mashallah says, because mashallah says that if the lord of the MC is well placed in the 11th house, the implication is well placed, so we can expect good results. So in this case, Saturn is not well placed, Saturn is poorly placed, and therefore we can say that relationships with allies will fail, and nations, or maybe even friends who were supporters of United States might end up cutting ties with the nation. So the supporters of the king will most likely abandon him, and liberality will fail. There won't be much liberality going forward. during that year, and we can expect a little bit of totalitarianism attitude that kind of stems because of this placement, and people will feel a very uh, distinct diversion from how it was or how the nation was. So the king would be deemed unfit and maybe questioned a lot by his own people. There is no reception from Mars, and therefore Saturn has no mitigation. I already mentioned, and 10th house is the natural house of administration, and the 10th house is afflicted heavily by the presence of Mars and Rahu. So there would be rash or unexpected happenings within the office, which would put the nation in the limelight for all wrong reasons, unfortunately. However, the positive aspect here is that the Lord of the 10th house of administration, that is Jupiter, is exalted in the second house of Cancer. So, and Jupiter is aspecting the 10th house by trine, which is a good thing. So therefore, despite the poor condition of the king, the administration might survive as a result of positive direction of someone who might work from the background, or someone who might potentially replace the king. Yeah, potentially replace the king. Which takes us, I think that's what I had for 2026 as far as the king is concerned. But overall, I think the nation is going to go through a lot of instability because Mercury is in the 10th house, and there could be some war situations as well, where US might directly involve in the conflict, or some kind of violent happenings, which unfortunately is explicit from this chart, but hopefully it won't happen. Uh, yeah. Now that I'm diving full time into astrology, like I've opened up a lot of slots, and I also kind of narrowed down my sessions or the offerings. So I know I have natal astrology, electional astrology, and yearly plan with 4 personalized sessions. So for natal astrology, we'll go through a lot of things. So I don't want to separate the annual session from the natal session, because somehow we need to understand both. So I want to kind of provide the totality or wholesome experience for the clients. So I thought I'll include a natal astrology, or talking about the chart and giving some awareness about the native, and go into annual sessions and also look at a larger frame of time periods, and which is why I have 1.5 hours sessions and not 1 hour sessions, so that we have enough time to kind of talk about all the things that the client wants during the session. And electional astrology, obviously, if you have uh, a new venture that's starting, uh, be it a business or a company, or maybe even a YouTube channel or an Instagram account, I'll be happy to kind of do elections for you. Elections in the sense giving the right time for you to start a new venture. And then yearly plan for personalized sessions, if you are interested in being um, guided throughout the year through astrology or my astrological services. I think it will be good for you to kind of take this session, where I'll be meeting you 4 times in a year to kind of guide you or navigate your life through the right directions, according to the astrological implications. So if you're going through such a phase in your life, and if you need if you feel the need for regular guidance, I think this is for you. So yeah, these are my offerings, and now we'll jump into Aries Ingress 2027. Much different from other two charts. So here we see that Leo is rising again, making the chart valid for 1 year. So Leo is rising with the MC in the 10th house of Taurus. Therefore, Venus becomes the significator of the king, and Venus is placed in the 7th house of Aquarius. Venus is angular, which is good, but Venus is in conjunction with Rahu, which makes the situation a little volatile. Not little volatile, but very volatile. And on the other hand, Saturn, which is the dispositor of Venus is placed in the ninth house of Aries and Saturn is debilitated. So, which kind of largely weakens Venus, because Saturn is the ruler of Venus, and although there is reception for Venus by sextile with Saturn, but still I think it's a poor condition of Saturn, and Saturn's strength is much needed for Venus because Venus is also afflicted by Rahu. So MC is tightly squared by the nodes and the Mars, so which is another important aspect that we need to consider. So MC is in the 10th house, and we have the nodes in the 1-7 axis, which means that uh, Rahu and Ketu are squaring the MC and afflicting the Lord of the MC. So it's complete affliction of Venus, and Mars is also aspecting Venus, another malefic, and Mars is also squaring the MC, which kind of completely worsens the condition of the king. So Rahu indicates obsession and Venus indicates pleasure and luxury. So here we see the king who is obsessed with his power and the ability to rule, but he's not able to kind of fulfill the desires of the nation. And and this is the period where there will be a lot of foreign influence because of Venus conjunct Rahu, uh, and that will basically impair the king, and it will further impair the abilities of the smooth functioning of the nation as well. Um, and this can be understood from Mars and Ketu in the first house, as the nation's direction is a little volatile, violent. I mean, exposed to potential exposure to violence, and also various other challenges. So Mars and Ketu in the first house indicates violence, aggression, and unprecedented or unexpected incidents that could change the course of the nation's overall direction for the rest of the year in 2027, because this chart is valid for 1 year since a fixed sign is rising. And since the MC is also squared by Mars and then nodes, violence against the king is also a realistic possibility. It's quite unfortunate, and you know, uh, and changes in the office of the king are also expected, uh, obviously because of sudden and unexpected reasons. And Venus, which is the significator of the king, is placed in the 7th house. As I mentioned, just a summary, Saturn is fallen, and this indicates failure in diplomacy and also failure in foreign policy, leading to major challenges within the nation, and also uh, impeding or causing impediment to the nation's image on the global platform. So medieval astrologers always specify or instruct us that the place from where the infortunes aspect the Lord of the MC or the MC is the place from where the impediments or the challenges would come for the king. So in this case, we have Mars and Ketu in the first house and Rahu in the 7th house. Mars aspecting the Lord of the MC, that is Venus, and Mars also is squaring the MC. And obviously, the nodal axis is there, so there is nothing much needs to be told. There is a lot of instability, volatile situations that is damaging the nation's image on the global platform. So since malefics are placed in both first and the 7th house, we can understand that the impediment for the king will occur from both the first house and the 7th house matters. First house is the nation and the people of the nation, and 7th house is the opposition, because or the enemies, direct opposite enemies. So challenges will come from both corners, and it could be impediment or danger, from someone who considers the nation as an enemy. So Mars aspecting Venus indicates confrontations from the people of the nation, and also Jupiter indicates there will be a lot of judicial challenges, like confrontations from the judicial authorities. The law of the land would take its course and tighten the noose for the king, and this situation could potentially kind of give rise to some form of violence, or maybe even riots across the nation against the leader. So, and Saturn's debilitation, obviously, as the Lord of the Venus, indicates that the support system of the king is lost. So there is a fracture in the government because of the king's challenges, or the challenges because of the king, whatever it is. So which would occur because of rash decision, or something like this would occur. Rash decisions could occur after major events as well, that could potentially harm the nation, as opposed to taking the nation in the right direction towards prosperity. So one final verdict is that people would be at odds with the leadership. So is there a leadership crisis? Yes, potential leadership crisis, which could also usher in some form of change as well, uh, in both 2026 and 2027. So I think it's challenging time for as far as the leadership is concerned for the United States of America, and there surely is some form of a crisis that is kind of brewing behind the scenes. And that's it I have for this video, and I hope to see you soon.